What if one signature on one document could threaten a $250 billion industry? If a single policy change could rewrite the futures of millions of Indian tech professionals and send shockwaves throughout the global economy? This isn't hypothetical. This is the new reality. Welcome to Bankers Bootcamp, the channel that gives you the sharpest analysis on the events shaping our world. I'm your host, and today we are tackling the bombshell news that has everyone talking. The Trump administration has just imposed a staggering $100K fee on H1B visas exclusively targeting Indian nationals. Is this the end of the Indian IT dream? Or is it a disguised opportunity? Over the next few minutes, we are going to dissect every angle of this geopolitical earthquake. We will cover the brutal impact on the Indian IT, the consequences for the US, and how it rewrites the rules of the global AI race, and the three critical factors everyone else is missing. Let's get into it. First, let's break down this policy beyond the headlines. This isn't just a fee increase, it's a precision-guided economic missile. The executive order mandates a new country-specific surcharge of $94K on top of existing H1B fee, which already ranges from $4 to $7.5K. This brings the total cost for an Indian national's H1B visa to over $100K. Now, this $100K fee applies only to the new H1B applications, not renewals or current visa, White House clarification. Set to take effect from September 21, 2025 with only one-day transition window, sparking chaos and legal confusion. The US government says it's about protecting American jobs, and the Commerce Secretary even said, if you're going to train someone, train an American. Stop bringing in foreigners. US tech giants Amazon, Microsoft, Meta are the largest H1B users, but India provides over 71% of all H1B recipients. The fee is positioned as annual in some statements, but ultimately clarified as a one-time payment for the new applications. NASSCOM, India's IT industry body, has warned of massive business disruption, and the Indian government has urged for a review, citing humanitarian concerns for families and workers. Now let's talk some numbers. India's IT and business processes outsourcing industry is worth $283 billion, with the US as its biggest market. In 2024, Indian nationals made up 71% of 399,395 H1B visas. China was a distant second at just 11.7%. India's IT majors TCS, Infosys, HCL, Wipro, LTI, collectively filed for tens of thousands of H1B visas in 2025 alone. So what happens now? For big companies like TCS or Infosys who already pay US level salaries, the $100K fee per new application could mean tens to hundreds of millions of extra annual cost. For smaller IT firms, this is a death blow. Many can't afford to onboard skilled Indian talent onshore, forcing operations to move offshore, automate, or even shut US operations. Clients in the US will feel project delays, higher costs, and more offshoring than ever. The shockwaves could hit India's overall services export growth, leading to hiring freeze and disrupting thousands of skilled tech careers. This has three immediate effects. Margin annihilation. The net profit margins of Indian IT firms hover between 15 to 25%. This new cost could wipe out a significant portion of that, making their US operations potentially unprofitable. Business model collapse. The traditional on-site offshore model, where Indian consultants are sent to the client's US locations, becomes economically unviable. Companies will be forced to pivot, and fast. Economic ripple effect. India's IT sector is a country's largest private sector employer and contributes nearly 8% to our GDP. A crisis in IT means a crisis for Indian economy. We are talking about potential hiring freezes, reduced campus placement, and a slowdown in the high-skilled service exports that have fueled India's growth story. Now let's look at the US. On the surface, this looks like a win for American workers, but the reality is far more complex. Short-term impact. The US is already facing a massive tech talent shortage. There simply aren't enough local STEM graduates to fill the millions of open tech roles. Indian H1B workers weren't just cheaper, they were filling a critical skills gap. American companies from Silicon Valley giants to Wall Street banks will now face project delays and soaring cost. Long-term impact. With the supply of skilled Indian talent choked off, US companies will be forced to pay a premium for local talent, driving up wage inflation across the tech sector. Furthermore, instead of onshoring jobs, Companies are more likely to accelerate nearshoring, moving their tech operations to countries like Mexico, Canada, or Colombia, which don't have the punitive visa fee. The jobs won't necessarily come back to America, they'll just move somewhere else. This is where the story gets even bigger. We are in the middle of a global race for dominance in the artificial intelligence. The most valuable resource in this race isn't data or silicon, it's human talent. By blocking the flow of top-tier Indian AI and machine learning engineers, the US is unilaterally disarming itself in the tech Cold War against China. China is already producing more AI experts than the US. Now the US is actively pushing away the very talent it needs to maintain its edge. This policy sends a chilling message to the world. America is closing its doors. This will fundamentally alter global talent flows. Instead of heading to the Silicon Valley, the world's brightest minds from India and beyond will now look into the tech hubs in Canada, the UK, Germany, and increasingly back home in India. This could be the single biggest geopolitical gift the US has ever handed to its competitors. The reaction on Dalal Street was swift and brutal. The Nifty IT index plunged 15% in a single week following the announcements. Stocks like TCS, Infosys, Wipro were decimated. FIIs, foreign institutional investors, who see this as a direct attack on the business model of their largest holdings, have been panic selling. We have seen FII outflows of over 25,000 crores from the Indian IT sector alone. DIIs, domestic institutional investors, and retail investors are trying to absorb the shock, but the negative sentiment is overwhelming. FDI, foreign direct investment, is now at a risk. Global companies planning to use India as the base for their US operations will have to rethink their entire strategy now. Now, for the Bankers Bootcamp exclusive analysis. Here are 3 critical factors the other channels are not talking about. First, the unstoppable rise of the GCCs. This policy will supercharge the growth of Global Capability Centers, GCC, in India. Instead of sending Indian talent to the US, American companies will now simply expand their own captive tech centers in Bangalore, Hyderabad, and Pune. The work will still be done by the Indian engineers, but it will be done in India. This policy, meant to stop outsourcing, will ironically make it more entrenched and sophisticated. Second, for decades we have limited India's brain drain. This policy might just trigger a reverse brain drain on an unprecedented scale. Thousands of brilliant US-trained Indian professionals, now unable to stay in America, will be forced to return home. They will bring back not just skills, but the mindset of innovation, risk-taking, and startup culture. They won't be looking for jobs, they will be creating them. This could be the spark that ignites India's next-generation product and deep tech ecosystem. Third, over 500,000 Indian professionals in the US are H1B dependent. Sudden policy changes means relocation, career disruptions, and family separations. The American dream becomes costlier and riskier for young Indian graduates. These deeply personal impacts shape not just the labor market but cultural and diplomatic ties between both the nations. So, what's the final verdict from Bankers Bootcamp? This $100K H1B fee is devastating short-term blow to the Indian IT services industry. There is no sugarcoating it. It will force a painful, expensive, and immediate pivot in their business models. The golden age of labor arbitrage is officially over. However, in the long run, this could be the shock therapy that India needed. It will force our IT industry to move up the value chain, away from simple staff augmentation and towards high-value consulting, product development, and IP creation. It will accelerate the growth of our domestic tech ecosystem and may ironically make India a more self-reliant and innovative tech power. For the US, this is a monumental strategic error. In an attempt to solve a domestic political problem, it has weakened its own tech industry, alienated a key strategic partner in India, and given a massive advantage to its global competitors. The world is changing. The old rules no longer apply. This H1B crisis isn't just a challenge, it's a crossword. And the path India chooses now will define its destiny as a global tech superpower for the next century. What do you think? Is this the end of an era or the beginning of a new one? Let me know your analysis in the comments below. And if you want to stay ahead of the curve on financial and geopolitical trends that matters, make sure you subscribe to Bankers Bootcamp. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and I'll see you in the next episode.